Stratfor has come out with an article that is very compelling that is entitled Israel, the Case Against Attacking Iran. And it starts out analyzing what Mr. Ehud Barak, former Israeli defense minister and former prime minister of Israel, who got on Channel 2 in Israel on August 21st and said that there were 3 different times that Israel had decided that they may want to attack Iran but backed out. And in essence, he was calling it to the attention that it was during Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu's tenure that these 3 possible attacks were under Mr. Netanyahu's leadership. The first 2 attempts, or should I say proposals, to attack Iran was basically shot down because 2 high-level cabinet members would not support it. And the last time it was because that U.S.-Israeli military exercises coincided with the best time to attack Iran. And one of the points that Stratfor brought out was they were surprised that the military censors allowed this particular interview to take place. And it was also stated that Mr. Barak, when he found out it was going to be aired, attempted to have it blocked as well. But the truth of the matter is that if, in fact, either one of them wanted to have it blocked, it would have been blocked. But as stated in Stratfor, they believed that Mr. Ehud Barak wanted that interview to be aired to send a message to Netanyahu and to the Israeli people. There's a possibility that he may very well be trying to for another run at the prime ministership. But that wasn't the point I was trying to bring out. Really the points I'm trying to bring out is regarding why they do not attack Israel or Iran. I've heard many different reasons over the course of the 12 or 13 years that Israel has known about Iran's wishes to create a nuclear bomb. In fact, it started somewhere right around 2002 when it became known. And yes, I did report about that. I have numerous articles on the progression of that over the years. You can go to my website and look those up if that's what you wish to do. Here are some of the points of the article. It says, a number of points are worth noting. Ehud Barak is not a man to speak casually about highly classified matters, certainly not while being recorded. Moreover, the idea that Barak was unable to persuade the military censor to block the airing of the recording is highly improbable. For some reason, Barak wanted to say this, and he wanted it broadcasted. Part of the reason might have been to explain why Israel, so concerned about Iran, didn't take action against Iran's nuclear facilities. In fact, that's something that has always been on my mind. Israel had always sent subtle hints not only to Iran but to the world that they were in the process of attacking them and that they did have a plan. The explanation Barak is giving seems to be that senior military and defense officials blocked the plans and that the Israelis didn't want to upset the Americans by attacking during a joint exercise. The problem with this explanation is that it is well known that Israeli military intelligence officials had argued against an Israeli strike and that the United States would have been upset whether or not joint exercises were occurring. But the truth of the matter is, it goes on to say that the military was not sure it would or could succeed. Military operation, like anything else in life, must be judged in 2 ways. First, what are the consequences of failure? Second, how likely is failure? Take, for example, the failure of the U.S. hostage rescue operation in 1980. Apart from the obvious cost, the failure gave the Iranian government reason to reduce its respect for U.S. power and thus potentially embolden Iran to take more risk. Even more important, it enhanced the reputation of the Iranian government in the eyes of its people, both demonstrating that the United States threatened Iranian sovereignty and increasing the credibility of the government's ability to defend Iran. Finally, it eroded confidence in U.S. political and military leaders among the U.S. public. In reducing the threat and the perception of threat, the failure of the operation gave the Iranian regime more room to maneuver. For the Israelis, the price of failure in an attack on Iranian nuclear sites would have been substantial. One of Israel's major strategic political assets is the public's belief in its military competence. Forged during the 1967 war, the IDF's public image has survived a number of stalemates and setbacks. A failure in Iran would damage that image even if, in reality, the military strength remained intact. And that seems to be the way it is every single time they have a battle with either Hamas or Hezbollah. Even though they beat both of those armies senseless, it always seemed like they always claimed that they beat Israel. And to some degree, it always comes back that they do. But the truth of the matter is that Israel has always been a resounding victor in these wars. But going on with the article, it says a failure in Iran would damage the image of that image, even if in reality the military strength remained intact. Far more important, it would, as the failed U.S. operation did in 1980, enhance Iran's position. So even though Israel may put a bruising, punishing beating on Iran, if it wasn't a perfect, complete, and precision defeat, if anything at all went wrong, or if a downed pilot went down and there were captured pilots or soldiers, because you know there'd have to be some type of special forces operation on the ground, that would leave an impression of Israeli weakness contrasted with Iranian strength. That perception would be an immeasurable advantage for Iran in its efforts to accrue power in the region. Thus, for Israel, the cost of failure would be extreme. You know, one thing that always happens every time that Hamas or Hezbollah lose a bruising battle with Israel, the news media and the general public seem to have the perception that Hamas or Hezbollah has gotten stronger. I guess the perception is that Israel, with all of their technological advances, that they should be much more devastating toward their opponent. And the fact that they're not, and they are having casualties, that a loss turns into a win because of the fact they survived. And now here's the second point. This must be measured against the possibility of success. In war, as in everything, the most obvious successes can evolve into failure. There were several potential points for failure in an attack on Iran. How confident were the Israelis that their intelligence on locations, fortifications, and defenses were accurate? How confident were they that they could destroy the right targets? More important, perhaps, how certain could they be that the strikes had destroyed the target? And finally, and most important, did they know what Iran's recuperative capabilities were? How quickly could the Iranians restore their program? Frequently, an operationally successful assault does not deal with the strategic problem. The goal of an attack was to make Iran incapable of building a nuclear weapon. Would destroying all known targets achieve that strategic goal? And the article also goes on to say that Israel knew that Iran was very skilled in their deceptive powers, so they didn't really know at what point Iran was in their nuclear program. They're never completely sure where they're at. Certainly they had high-level sources and satellite transmissions to give them quite a few clues. But even if only one or two sources, the article says, of information were actually misleading, which sources were they? A failed Israeli assault on Iran would cause a major readjustment among other regional players in the way they perceive Israel and Iran. And for Israel, the perception of its military effectiveness is a strategic asset. There was a high risk of damaging that strategic asset in a failed operation, coupled with a strong chance that Israeli actions could unintentionally bolster Iran's power in the region. The likelihood of success was thrown into question by Israel's dependence on intelligence. So most countries in the region consider Iran or Israel to be a very strong and precision military with extremely good intelligence. If Israel were to attack Iran, that very well could be altered, meaning that if they failed in achieving all of their objectives, that would put Israel in a bad light as far as the rest of the Middle East is concerned, and could bolster Iran's military capabilities or perceived military capabilities. And the Israeli military elite just couldn't see. And Mr. Barak was saying that Netanyahu couldn't see, putting that perception in harm's way. Now here's the part of the article that I think is very interesting. There is another side to this equation. What exactly were the Iranians capable of? As I have argued before, enriched, that's talking about the author of the article, enriched uranium is a necessary but insufficient component for a nuclear weapon. It is enough to create a device that can be detonated underground in controlled conditions. But the development of a weapon as opposed to a device requires extensive technology in miniaturization and ruggedization, I guess that's how you pronounce it, to ensure the weapon reaches its target. So the weapon had to be rugged enough and small enough in order to be weaponized and placed on a delivery system. Those who fixated on progress in uranium enrichment failed to consider the other technologies necessary to create nuclear weaponry. Some, include myself, argued that the constant delays in completing a weapon were rooted both in the lack of critical technologies and in Iranian concerns about the consequence of failure. And pay attention to this right here, because I believe this is the most key part of the article. It says, then there is the question of timing. A nuclear weapon would be most vulnerable at the moment it was completed and mounted on its delivery system. At that moment, it would no longer be underground, and the Israelis would have an opportunity to strike when Iranians were in the process of marrying the weapon to the delivery system. Israel, and to an even greater extent the United States, has reconnaissance capabilities. The Iranians know that the final phase of weapon development is when they most risk detection and attack. The Israelis may have felt that. As risky as a future operation may seem, it was far less likely to fail than a premature attack. To put it in simplest terms, the Israelis considered and abandoned attacks on Iran on several occasions when senior commanders or cabinet members with significant military experience refused to approve the plan. Unmentioned was that neither the Prime Minister nor the cabinet overruled them. Their judgment, and the judgment of many others, was that an attack shouldn't be executed, at least not at that time. And they also talk about the likelihood that Mr. Netanyahu or Mr. Barak believed that sanctions would do the deal, or would keep Iran in check. It was not believed that they believed either one of those, or that sanctions would keep Iran where they needed them to be, or prevent them from achieving a nuclear weapon. And going on with the article, it says it's unlikely that Barak believes sanctions will compel Iran to abandon its nuclear program any more than the current agreement does. My guess is that for him, both are irrelevant, which is likely the truth. There were many examples in the article that stated why that was not the case, that he didn't believe that sanctions would either detour Iran or any other country in history. But going on, it says, either the Iranians do not have the ability to, or desire to build a bomb, or there will come a point when they can no longer hide the program. And that day will come, and that is the point when they will be most vulnerable to attack. It is at that point, when the Iranians are seen arming a delivery system, that an Israeli or U.S. submarine will fire a missile and end the issue. If Barak didn't want a strike on Iran, if Netanyahu didn't want a strike, and if Barak has no confidence in agreements or sanctions, then Barak must have something in mind for dealing with an Iranian nuclear weapon, if in fact it ever does appear. Barak is an old soldier who knows how to refrain from firing until he is most certain of success, even if the delay makes everyone else nervous. He is not a believer in diplomatic solutions, gestures to indirectly inflict pain, or operations destined for failure. At any rate, he has revealed that Israel did not have an effective military option to hamper Iran's nuclear program, and I find it impossible to believe he would rely on sanctions or diplomacy. Rather, he would wait to strike until Iran had committed to arming a delivery system, leaving itself wide open to attack. A nerve-wracking solution, but one with the best chance of success. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, that just seems too simplistic to be a plan or to even be a reality. All Israel has to do is wait until they bring out their nuclear weapon, try to arm it, and then destroy it. And I have to admit, even reading this, I thought to myself, yeah, that is a pretty simplistic plan. But if true, I do see how that could be effective, and why Israel has waited all this time. You know, over the years, I keep wondering why in the world Israel keeps calling on the fact that they're going to attack Iran and not do it. And if in fact this is the best solution that will yield the best results and will take out Iran's nuclear program all in one big swoop, it only makes sense to wait it out and to see if in fact they do try to bring out their weapon and try to weaponize it and put it to a delivery system. As I've said in the past, anyone can create a bomb, but creating a bomb and applying it to a delivery system and shooting it off and making sure it gets to where it needs to go accurately is another thing. That takes time and practice. Even though North Korea has stated that they are a nuclear power, you've never seen a nuclear bomb out in public, that's for sure. So they may very well be a nuclear power, but they simply do not have a delivery system, nor are they sure that that delivery system could carry it accurately to the spot that they want to send it. And they don't know if it's rugged enough to withstand all of the issues that it would undertake in the process of getting from A to B. Well, that's the same problem that Iran has. At some point in time, yes, they may very well have a nuclear program that has created a nuclear weapon. But miniaturizing it and getting it and making it rugged enough to get from point A to point B means that they are going to have to set it upon a delivery system. And in doing so, according to Stratfor, this will be the time where they will be most vulnerable to an attack. And not only from Iran, but also from the United States. And I'm sure that many of you are thinking, well, this is just too simplistic or too simple to be true. All Israel has to do is wait them out and let them expose their nuclear program or their nuclear assets when they're basically finished, and then just simply destroy them. We'll have to rely on Stratfor and their information that they have provided. And if going by their record, I can tell you right now that the vast majority of the time they have been correct and true. So you can decide whether or not you want to take this at face value or do some of your own research and see what you come up with. And certainly if you have another paid source that you might be getting who has also made a high-level intelligence report on this situation, I would love to hear it. But certainly I'm not interested in anything that you might get from InfoWars or any of the other doomsday tabloid type media websites or whatever the case may be. Some others that I've found to be pretty good are also the Foreign Policy Magazine, as I've stated before, the National Interest. And if you have one that I have not mentioned that you believe is very accurate, please pass it on to me and I'll review what they do and what they've said, because I'm always looking for good sources of solid information. And as always, if you've not come to the Lord as Savior, you need to do that today. 150,000 people die every day. The Bible says that the vast majority will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Come to Jesus today and let Him save you. And I'd also encourage you to get a copy of my free Tribulation Period Survival Guide. Let me say that again, it's free. But if you wish to get the paperback version, there is a cost involved. That's the publisher who he charges it. And I created that for people who would like to put a hardback copy in their loved one's hand so that when the rapture does take place, they'll have this left behind for them. If that is your wish, that is something you should do then. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.